Hey everybody, it's Elizabeth with World's Cup of Joe, Awaken Your Soul. Today we are going to resume our soul through literature with our second chapter of The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. Okay, let us begin. I hope you enjoyed the first chapter discussion of soul found in Oscar Wilde's The Picture of Dorian Gray. We will now continue to dissect this magnificent novel with quotes that resonated with soul in Chapter 2. I will give a short synopsis of Chapter 1. Basil Hallward, a painter, explains to his close friend Lord Henry Wotton that he has a new inspiration for his craft in the form of a man named Dorian Gray. He is absolutely mesmerized by this mysterious, intriguing, and beautiful man, and credits him for a new sense of purpose in his artwork. Lord Henry is extremely intrigued by the image Basil has painted of Dorian, and when Dorian arrives for his portrait sitting, begs Basil to let him meet him. Basil hesitates as he knows that Lord Henry has an ability to corrupt people with his ideas and philosophies on life. But Basil resists his better judgment and allows the two to meet. That is where Chapter 1 ends and 2 begins, with the introduction of Lord Henry and the elusive Dorian Gray. I don't want to focus much on the storyline as I feel it is not pertinent to what I want to accomplish in this series, which is the transference of soul through specific passages of quotes. I am intentionally being narrowly focused on the quotes that I use and will merely go over the predominant story as a secondary backdrop to the focus of soul presented as literature. Soul Gone Wild, The Picture of Dorian Gray. I love Chapter 2 of this book. I think perhaps some of the best quotes of the whole book reside within these pages. I will do my best to get them all in and discuss, but because there is so much to dive into, this will be broken up into 2 parts. The first quote. There was something in his face that made one trust him at once. All the candor of youth was there, as well as all youth's passionate purity. One felt that he had kept himself unspotted from the world. Lord Henry. The 2 best places to recognize and see soul in its purest form is to turn to a child or an animal and observe them for a few minutes. Both children and animals are simply being in the present, enjoying the now moment. They aren't caught up in what will happen a month from now or worried about the stressors of the world. They are enjoying life as it was meant to be lived, in the present. In the quote above, Lord Henry is looking upon Dorian for the first time and noticing how youthful and pure his face and energy looked and felt. He is observing that Dorian still has youth's passionate purity. When we are young, we believe that anything is possible. This is why the magic of Christmas can still exist. Children have an innate knowing of what inspires them and brings them joy. Walk a child into a room full of toys and naturally he will find his way to the toy that resonates the most and brings him the greatest sense of pleasure in the moment. Walk an adult into a room and offer a variety of options, and they will probably be at a loss. As we age, we lose our sense of self because we have been so busy pleasing and living for others that we barely recognize or can identify who we are and what ignites our soul's purpose. The next line, one felt he had kept himself unspotted from the world. This is a reference to the Bible, James 1:27, in which someone is undefiled from the world and good in the eyes of God. We are born pure of mind. As we age from a very early age, we pick up limiting beliefs from our family and those around us. Limiting beliefs are ideas that one believes to be true. Limiting beliefs are things that will continue to manifest themselves in your life because the law of attraction is always bringing you more of what you believe. If you have the limiting belief that you will be poor, life will continue to show you that you are. If you believe that people are unkind, you will continuously meet people that will prove you are right. To be unspotted from the world is not to be pure from sin. It is to be pure from limiting beliefs that hold you back. Believe that you are powerful, abundant, worthy, and enough, and soon the universe will start bringing you situations and people to match those beliefs you hold. You are the creator of your universe. Go through life creating what you want to see. To do this, though, you must believe that you can. Approach life with a childlike purity where magic still exists, because it does. You just have to be willing to watch for it and notice it when it comes to you in the form of manifestations, signs, and synchronicities. Next time you have an encounter with someone extremely nice and friendly, that is a manifestation. Notice how you were feeling before you talked with that person. Start seeing the patterns of how you feel associated with what manifests next in your life. You will see that your energy, whether low or high on the scale of consciousness, will be matched by the universe and what is brought to you. Next quote. There is no such thing as a good influence, Mr. Gray. All influence is immoral from the scientific point of view. Because to influence a person is to give him one's own soul. He does not think with his natural thoughts or burn with his natural passions. His virtues are not real to him. His sins, if there are such a thing as sin, are borrowed. He becomes an echo of someone else's music, an actor of a part that has not been written for him. Lord Henry. There is so much to unpack in this quote. It is one of my favorite passages in the entire book, so I want to spend time on it and give it the attention it deserves. As a reformed people pleaser, this passage resonated to my core. When Lord Henry tells Dorian that influence is immoral because you are giving away your soul, I would argue that in this context, soul means ego. Soul just is. There is nothing to give away or to influence. It is the mind that can influence. The next part of this conversation will touch on what we discussed previously when we talked about limiting beliefs. Picture your childhood and the most important influencers in your life at the time. Every time they told you what was right or wrong, they were sharing or giving away their values, judgments, and opinions with you. All ego, by the way. As children, we took these on as our own, and we often hold firmly to these same beliefs still as adults. If you want more evidence of this, look at religion and politics. A huge majority share the same religious and political views as those that were most influential to them as a child. The next lines echo this same sentiment. If you are absorbing and taking one's influence to persuade your own ideas and desires, then you are not thinking for yourself or pursuing your own passions. For years, I gave up figuring out who I was because I was trying to be everything to everyone around me. I tried to be the doting wife, the perfect daughter, the adored mother, and the loyal friend. Not that there's anything wrong with being a good all-around person, but I did it in a way that ignored and rather neglected my own desires and needs and made sure that I capitulated to theirs first. Even in the littlest things, where we went for dinner. I never offered a restaurant that I would enjoy, but rather selected one that everyone else would like. On weekends, we didn't spend our free time doing what I wanted to do, but what everyone else wanted. This next part, if you are being influenced by others, are your virtues really your own? No, they aren't. You're behaving or acting in accordance with what is important or of value to someone else. I like to think of it as this. What would you do if no one were watching or would know? And remember, soul doesn't judge, so there is no right or wrong way. That takes us into our next line. If someone commits a sin, if those even exist, then whose sin is it if we are merely doing what was influenced by someone else? I just had this conversation with my oldest daughter, who's almost 16, and told her that if I can give any advice for the rest of her life, it is to always aim to please herself. We raise our children to try and please us and conform to our thoughts and requests. In doing so, we are stifling them from learning their own passions and joys because we're so busy trying to make them believe that what we want for them is right. I want my children to learn what makes them happy and sad and to understand the role that duality plays in shaping their lives. I don't want them to be influenced by others where they push down their own inspirations and desires and pursue dreams that are not of their own making. If they sin, I want their mistakes to be their own so they can understand and recognize the contrast that their own mistakes show them. The next sentence is so poetic, it is actually quite beautiful. He becomes an echo of someone else's music, an actor of a part that has not been written for him. When you're living your life people-pleasing and being influenced by them, while ignoring what is important to you, you are living out a life that wasn't intended for you. We came here to create and put our own footprint down in the sand. Acting in a role that was made for someone else, should not only feel unnatural to you, but it should leave you in a place of wanting more from life. Think of your current place of employment and role. Do you like what you do during the day? Is your job fulfilling? Are you working on soul's purpose every day while you toil away? Or are you living out a role that was meant for someone else? I remember talking to a client once that so badly wanted to please her parents in her career choice that she chose a field that was completely unsuited for her, and she was miserable. She was at a place in her life where she could recognize her career path as one that was influenced by her parents and felt like she had missed her opportunity to really pursue what her passion was. I argued that it's never too late to start pursuing your soul's purpose because all we ever have is now. So if it inspires you now, then do it. You don't have to think that far in the future and let mind take over with fears. Just for today, do what inspires you or takes you one step closer to getting there. Nothing ever must be permanent. Let's say you want to learn how to paint and you start painting and find out it's not something you enjoy. Then simply stop. Again, it's learning how to use duality to your advantage. You pursue something you think you'd enjoy, and if you don't, then you don't need to do it or take it any further. If it still excites you and you want to keep expanding your capabilities, then continue to work on it when you are inspired to. Follow inspired action and learn how to play the role in the movie that was created just for you. This sets us up perfectly for our next quote. The aim of life is self-development. To realize one's nature perfectly, that is what each of us is here for. Lord Henry. It wasn't until my awakening that I really started to take root in what things inspired me. I wholeheartedly agree with Lord Henry's quote here. The aim of life is self-development. Every day we are learning what inspires and drives us to want to be better versions of ourselves to live our best lives. Notice I didn't say to become a better person. That is not what I think we are here for, because what defines a good person is extremely subjective. Rather, I believe we are here to find out what makes us want to wake up in the morning. Remember as a little kid being so excited for what was going to happen the next day that you could barely fall asleep? That is what I aim for in my life. That is my goal every day. I want to be so excited about what I'm going to do the next day that I can barely fall asleep because I'm so eager about what is next in life. When Joanne and I created World's Cup of Joe, that is how I felt. I still feel this way. I go to bed excited to wake up and figure out what I want to be able to create. Joanne and I always had a pact, never create when we aren't inspired. We don't make videos or products or anything else in our normal worlds unless we feel an inspiration from soul to do it. Not only will more be accomplished in a shorter period of time, but the product that soul yields is infinitely better than a result the mind could create alone. Soul wants us to be eager and excited about life. Part of self-development is learning the things that don't inspire you and to never pass judgment. For the client that I previously mentioned, one of the biggest things I wanted her to accept was not to judge herself for the time she had committed to her career. That time was spent and it's past. Soul never looks back. Who cares if a minute was spent or 5 years? It's over and now you have this moment to start fresh. Every moment is a new time that you can reinvent yourself and discover new things about yourself that push you for more. Don't let the past, all mind, prohibit your growth. Next quote. The terror of society, which is the basis of morals, the terror of God, which is the secret of religion, these are the two things that govern us. Lord Henry. We base our morals and what we deem as right or wrong based on the popular view of society. Being a history major, it is interesting to watch how cultural norms have shifted and the morals that come from those ideals. When I previously went over Chapter 1, I discussed how homosexuality was not only accepted in ancient Greece, but was extremely commonplace in their culture. Their society said it was fine, therefore it was morally acceptable. Fast forward to Wilde's time and the society he lived in, where homosexuality was not only unaccepted, but was a crime. Wilde came out as a homosexual later in life, and he was criminally convicted of consensual homosexual acts and was sentenced to prison time for it. He was in prison for 2 years, suffered greatly in there, and when he was released was exiled to France and never returned to England in his lifetime. In looking at these two examples, you can see where society is the arbitrator of morals. I can give another historical example, the Spartans. Spartan males were developed from an early age to learn how to become killing machines. That was their role. It was an extremely militaristic society. When men went off to war, the mothers would tell their sons to either come back with their shields on or on it. Meaning, if you lose, you better be dead. Violence was a way of life and acceptable in that society. The next line, the terror of God, which is the secret of religion, is showing that religious leaders gained followers by touting the fear of God rather than the love of God. People were told that if they sinned, they'd be punished by eternal damnation, if their sins were not forgiven or atoned for. Our souls have source energy, God energy, or whatever other name you want to give it inside each of us. Fear is from the mind. It is not from God or soul or source. Fear was a tool to scare people into conformity. Wilde is saying in this quote that we have been allowing ourselves to be governed by societal expectations as well as religious fear that we will be punished by God if we don't behave accordingly. I believe Wilde is pointing out that we need to use our own guidance system to determine what is right for ourselves. It is easy to see how this was extremely relevant to his own life as a gay man. Being told by society as well as living in fear of religious practitioners that he was living a life of sin. Soul wants us to be happy. Living out of a place of fear and judgment is not from soul, but from mind. Watch those around you that are asleep. Who are they living for and who are they trying to please? Are they living for themselves or for others? Who do you want to live for? Do you want to live out of judgment and fear or joy and love? I will conclude the first part of chapter 2 here and take up the rest next week. Like I said, there's so much in this chapter. It really is quite extraordinary. I hope you enjoyed Soul Through Literature and will join us next week when we finish chapter 2 of Oscar Wilde's The Picture of Dorian Gray. Once again, this is Elizabeth with World's Cup of Joe. Awaken your soul.